Okay, it's 12:30. I think I'm going to go ahead and get started so that everybody has um, time to get their 10 minutes in. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this social media for higher education. We put this together, I think, in a couple months, and I'm hoping that you are all able to get something from it. The panel that I have brought in to talk to you all today kind of has their own experience and knowledge. So they're going to each spend about 10 minutes or so just talking to you and then move on to the next person. And at the end of the session, we, of course, will have time for questions or anything that we might have missed, we can come back around to. Briefly, I'm going to introduce my panel. So first, I have Natalie Schroeder Pruitt, who is a ECU social media and public communications specialist. I see Natalie all the time on our social media, so I begged her to come be a part of this. Next, we have Todd Finley, who is an associate professor out of the College of Education. And on Twitter, he has over 20,000 followers. And so he's definitely going to give us that professional use of Twitter and social media in higher education. Next, we have Dania Ramirez Gastelum. Did I do okay, Nia? Okay, thank you very much. It's like my biggest fear. And she is a graduate student who oversees the social media and marketing of the interns there at the Campus Rec and Wellness Center. So I've brought her in here to kind of give us a look into management of multiple people doing social media for us. And then last, we have Morgan Carter, who is a student in the School of Communication and is currently a social media intern for the Office of Global Affairs. And I certainly thought that she could come in and give us a student's perspective for social media. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Natalie. At about a minute left, I'm going to try to give everybody 10 minutes, but at about a minute left for each of you, I'm just going to jump in if we're not wrapping it up. Thank you all for being here, and take it away, Natalie.
Awesome, thank you. I am going to share a presentation screen that I have. I have a more in-depth presentation that I can share as well, but I just wanted to bring kind of a shortened version with me today. My computer likes to freeze on me, so here we go. So just social media for engaging students and alumni. We're going to quickly go over the platforms, trends on social media, standards for social media, and then briefly go over analytics. So we're going to start with the platforms. We're going to go over the three major platforms that we see on social media. They're kind of the dominating forces: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Obviously, there are other social media platforms that we see used. We've seen the emergence of TikTok. There is still Snapchat, but these three ones are kind of like the core group. So Facebook, the role for Facebook is connecting. It's very visual, it's mobile, and it's video centric. And it is used to assert influence and authority. I always use the example of kind of the misinformation in politics and getting credible information out there. There was that big issue back in, I believe, 2016, where misinformation was rampant, and we did kind of see that obviously this past summer and into the fall. But we use it at ECU to kind of assert our authority as the experts on different topics. Asserting our authority as, the hub of Pirate Pride, but just kind of telling our good news stories on Facebook. And the audience for Facebook is usually about ages 35 to 64. That's the most prominent group that we see on Facebook. So we kind of cater our topics or our content to alumni, as well as parents and grandparents, etc. And then Twitter, it is a conversational platform. It's real time. And so it's our use for it, and the use is just across higher ed or news, relationships, and crisis. This is a place where you're able to kind of have more of a personality and show a little bit more character. And then you're also able to just share, again, your good news stories, which we like to do. And then crisis is a big thing. Whenever there's a crisis that needs immediate communication, we use Twitter. We've used it obviously heavily with the coronavirus, but we do have trainings consistently in case there was an active situation or something else happened. We use it for hurricanes, just because it is the place where you can get information out the most quickly. Like, I don't even know if that's a correct sentence, but. And then Instagram is for inspiring. It's visual, authentic, and mobile. The main purpose for Instagram is to visually brand your company, organization. So we do a lot of campus beauty photos. If we're posting Instagram TV videos, we usually use a cover photo of a campus spot so that it still looks cohesive and aesthetically pleasing on the feed. But we do also use the stories on Instagram to share like good news, crisis communication, etc. because we do see students on here. Predominantly the age for Instagram is usually 18 to 29 is the largest age group. And then Twitter is pretty much, it's kind of 50-50. It's a great place to reach pretty much everyone. The main group of age is 18 to 49, but we see it really close on all other ends of the spectrum as well. Now we're going to go into trends. So staying trendy, obviously in the world of going viral on social media, it's really important to stay up to date on trends. So you want to make sure that when you see the viral trends or you see a daily trend, to kind of personalize it to your brand to then propel you into the spotlight. So a general trend could be like Throwback Thursday or Motivation Monday, Wellness Wednesday. But then there are some trends that kind of kick off. We've done like the bottle cap challenge. There was like the heartbeat thing at one point where you'd like show a slower heartbeat of you being like on a normal day. And then when something else happened, a really like high rate heartbeat. We did that where we had pictures of football players with holding babies. And so we said that was when our heartbeat went fast because it's just really cute, and that did really well on social media. But we utilize Throwback Thursdays consistently, and they consistently do well. So a great place to find trends that you can capitalize on is the Twitter Trends for You tab. It usually is in the right-hand corner of Twitter. If you go to tweetdeck.com as well, there's a whole section for trends. Also following accounts similar to your organization on both a local and national level, we find a lot of trends that way. So we have a list on our Twitter where we have all like a bunch of US universities on there. And so we'll skim through and see if there's a trend that maybe we missed that other universities are doing, because some trends you can't fit to a university because they're just not appropriate. So it's a great way to kind of find something new that's trending that you can alter to fit your brand. And then also asking students. Student Feel is honestly some of the best help because they're on the ground with all the other students and they know what they like to see the most. Standards wise, so best practices in general for social media, you want to make sure that you're building tags, handles, and hashtags into the copy. You have about 5 seconds to hook the viewer. I think there's like this infographic where it talks about how it shows a visual that we have like a 5-second attention span essentially, and goldfish have like a 9-second attention span. So you have less time than a goldfish, like catching a goldfish's attention, to stop someone in their tracks to look at your content. So you want to make sure that you're following best practices, like building everything into the copy. Don't put hashtags and tags at the very end of a post. You want to make sure that it's within it. So when we do like ECU Brody School of Medicine, Dr. Rachel Roper is working on coronavirus research, we would change it to at ECU Brody SOM, Dr. at Roper_lab is working on hashtag COVID-19 research. So that's all built in, and we're still getting the exposure that we need. But it is not all slammed at the end because people will look at that, see it's cluttered, and not really want to read any farther. Copy editing your post copy and breaking up your post copy into different paragraphs, utilizing emojis, making sure that there's multiple sets of eyes on it to make sure that there's not any errors is a great thing. Visuals, make sure that you're including videos, graphics, pictures to grab the viewer's attention, your audience's attention. And then interacting with and advocating for other university accounts is a great way to cross-brand and cross-promote. Brand standards, logo review, if you're using the logo in any of your graphics, if you're making them in-house and you're not submitting them through creative services for tickets, you need to make sure that you're sending it through logo review, which is just logo review at ecu.edu. They have a website where you can just search brand guidelines ECU, and they'll have all this information, the list of terms that are registered and trademarked that you need to make sure you're registering and trademarking on your graphics, our approved fonts, and then our color schemes. Another big thing for brand standards is ADA compliance. If you're posting a graphic, if you're posting a video, it needs to be closed captioned and or include alt text so that anyone that has a visual impairment can still get the content, or has a hearing impairment can still get the content and get that information. Otherwise, it's not accessible to them, and is really, really important for inclusion across the platforms. Account management. You can register to be a official university affiliated account at connects.ecu.edu/registration. We do request that there is a month's worth of consistent content for you to be approved as a university account. And then once you're approved as a university account, you can submit for university approved hashtags, such as like ECU Polar Bear for the Polar Bear Plunge, ECU Safe for promoting campus safety, ECU CRW for campus rec, etc. And then for analytics, we run it through our platform that we use for social media managing, but in an organic way to measure your content and evaluate how your content is going and optimizing it moving forward. We categorize things into 3 buckets, which are applause, conversation, and amplification. So applause is finding out what people like. So it's favorites, likes, or hearts on your content. Conversation is figuring out what people want to talk about. So like comments and replies. And then amplification is ultimately what you want. It's finding out what people are willing to advocate for and put on their own feed for their followers to see, or their friends on Facebook. So it's figuring out what they're willing to advocate for, which is shares and retweets. So I try to go as fast as possible, fit under the 10-minute mark. And
that was awesome.
Awesome. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it over to the next person.
Right. I think that's you, Todd.
That was great. Well, that was fantastic. I don't have nearly the technology and tech skills that Natalie has, but I'll tell you my story anyway. I'm going to start by just benefits of Twitter, and I'm only going to talk about Twitter because that's the only platform that I feel confident about. Instagram has its own rules. Facebook has its own rules. But let me talk about the benefits first. One is I get a lot of teaching ideas from Twitter. Also, I follow about 10 to 15 journalists, and so I'll get insight into stories that are breaking in real time. So I find that to be useful as a news junkie. And then also, I've gotten about 10 paid gigs from being on Twitter from Edutopia and Facebook, and then companies that no one's ever heard of before too. So those are my metrics for that. So my history with Twitter is that I was an early adopter and had no followers until about 2015. And that was the year that Edutopia brought everyone over to Skywalker Ranch, and we were in a theater. And what they'd do is they'd post getting a phone call, real tweets from people commenting on our blog posts, and then they'd have us in real time get on a microphone and see how we would respond. And I was just awful at it. Every time I said something, they say, "Oh no, don't say that." However, after 3 days, I won the Yoda Bobblehead Award for Most Improved, which I'm very proud of. So after 2015, I just decided to make Twitter into a game called How Do You Accrue More Followers? And so I tried a bunch of stuff that didn't work. What did work, and I know someone's talking about this a little bit later, is I started creating these tactical infographics. I call them brain blasts. I'm pasting a link to them into the chat space, and if you don't want to look at that, I have here's an example of what it is. If you can get in focus. Anyway, it looks like this. Essentially, it's about 10 to 12 tactical ideas on some kind of teaching topic, and still not in focus, with imagery around it. I know it's sensory overload, and that's just designed to get people's attention. My goal is, you know how you read a blog post and you're looking for ideas, and then you get, like, there's 2,000 words, and you get down to the end and there's like 2 ideas. I find that so irritating. So what I want to do is, like, see if I could take the bottom tactical part and throw that into one page with information design, and just see kind of what kind of attention I got. And so those were pretty popular and still tend to be. I've done about maybe 140 of them at this point. They take me about 2 hours to research, and I choose a topic that I'm kind of curious about, and that I have a little bit of background knowledge about, but that I feel like, as an educator, I should know a whole lot more about that. So I choose those kinds of subjects to take on. And I'll give you an example of some that I've done, and you tell me which one is the most popular. So I did classroom icebreakers, which is in the chat space. How to respond to classroom hate speech, 30 exit ticket prompts, what to do during the last class of the year, lesson starters, and then remote teaching strategies. So I hope you're thinking in your head, like, which one do you think would be most popular? And the answer is, like, by far 30 exit ticket prompts. So things that are meat and potatoes kinds of teaching practices are the ones that teachers tend to like the most. And so I kind of get I kind of get drawn into the metrics, like which ones hit, which ones don't hit. Within about 10 minutes of posting something, say at 8 o'clock at night, if it has 15 retweets in 10 minutes, it's like, okay, that's taking off. And then I get that dopamine rush, which is kind of fun and also very immature on my part. And also the ones that seem to do well, I will incorporate them into my courses too, as handouts for my students. But honestly, I've never had one student say, "Man, that infographic is really amazing, Todd. Thank you for that." So that's okay. I get far more love on Twitter than I do from my students. I'll give you 5 pieces of advice and things that I've learned the hard way. One is, I'd say, post things that you're curious about and enthusiastic about. Recycle content. That is, retweet stuff that you've already created if you are creating things. Use hashtags, and learn about hashtags and use hashtags. If you have brand new stuff something that you're doing, then I would say label that as new with an exclamation point. And then always post with a visual artifact. And just my motto, and I don't live up to it very often, is to just try and be helpful. And I think that's what Twitter is for us to learn from others and to be helpful. And I'm going to turn my mic off.
Thank you very much, Todd. All right, Nia, I think you are up.
Hello. Hi guys. Well, thank you for having me, Brittany, or Dr. Thompson, I'm sorry. I guess I'll give you guys a little background of myself. I graduated from East Carolina University with my undergrad in public relations, December of 2019. So I got to walk before everything got kind of crazy. And I've been with Campus Recreation and Wellness. I believe I'll be coming up on 2 years now here in May. When I started with CRW, I started as an intern, as a marketing assistant, really not thinking anything of it. I just knew I needed an internship over the summer and into the fall so I could put something on my resume and hopefully better my chances of getting a job upon graduation in December of 2019. Well, I loved it. I think I've gotten more out of this internship than anything I've done in the past. Everyone I work with really cares. It's very student oriented. I'm working with pro staff that really care about students in higher education. And I was very fortunate to be able to be immersed in this environment and have this experience. And when it came time to, as graduation neared, my supervisor, Jenna Gregory, she's the associate director for communications and promotions here at CRW. She asked me what I was going to do after graduation, and I said, find a job. I don't know, maybe take a break. And she offered me the position to be the communications and promotions graduate assistant to start in the fall. Prior to that, I was working with membership services, so learning more about CRW in a different way. And it was great. We didn't know that our last day in the office was going to be our last day in the office in March. And while it might have been fun for the first week to, have extra time off of school, obviously that got old really quick. And things got kind of busy. So figuring out how to, at that time, it wasn't my sole responsibility to manage interns. I was still just contributing to the team and creating content and making sure things were getting posted. But I was very fortunate to experience CRW and how it was like to be a regular intern when everything was, how it was a year ago, and then transitioning into having to completely do things virtual and managing things from home and figuring out how to communicate virtually, and then transitioning back into the office, wearing our masks, social distancing. How much can we do from here? How much can we do from home? It's been really interesting. It wasn't easy some days, but now it's definitely, now that it's not my first time in the rodeo, I think we're getting better about staying on top of content and managing and making sure that we're all on the same page. So as far as social media management, some of the tools that we use, we primarily use Hootsuite. Going into this, I figured I should show you guys what that is, but just Google Hootsuite.com. It's just a social media management platform. We primarily use that to keep track of our analytics. And to schedule drafted tweets, what the interns do, and I'll go more into that here in a bit. We have graphic designers. We're fortunate enough to have graphic designers. They're all students. Everyone in our staff, they're all students that attend ECU. They'll create graphics with information about any events or programs that are coming up. It's their, responsibility to create those graphics, and then our interns will take those and schedule tweets for that. Give information about any events that are coming up and leave that draft there, and then I go in, make sure everything looks fine, approve it, and we just are able to schedule content ahead of time. We primarily use that for Twitter, and it's just allowed us to stay organized in that way. But for the most part, I would say we create our own spreadsheets, and we also utilize Smartsheets, which is just something that everyone in CRW within the department has access to. If they want to submit marketing requests, it just helps us stay connected with the other areas to see what they need from us, so we can make sure that it all gets posted accordingly and in a timely manner, or if they have, any need for a campaign, or if they have any ideas, we make sure we meet with them on a weekly basis to collaborate with them and just have enough time to plan everything out. I think that's what's been the key to everything is communication and planning, just because you never know what's going to happen. And we found that as long as we have a plan as to how we would like things to play out, if that plan doesn't work out, what else can we do? And thinking on our feet when it comes to that. Our hub to keep track of everything, at least within a team, with our interns and between Jenny and myself and our marketing manager, Melinda Massey, is we use Teams. So I think that's something that we've all been acquainted with now over the last couple of months. And we just create our own team for our team online. There we keep all of our photography, any schedules that they need to keep up with, any content information, anything that's work related. We just use Teams to communicate, so we all know if I need to tell any of them anything, and if they're not all in the office. We tried using GroupMe at first. I think that was where we communicated very well at the beginning, but then once everything went virtual and there's just too many of us in the office to know. So we post everything on Teams in case one of us misses an email. It's always there, and we emphasize check that and make sure that is where you're getting your information on. And we also use Teams, the planner within Teams. Teams has been great because you not only have access to everyone within the department, you have access to everyone in the university just about. And I know for a fact all the students are acquainted with that now. So that's really helped a lot. So like I said, it's primarily how we communicate. And I, as their mentor, as the graduate assistant, I've made a booklet of sorts with all of the information that will help them at least run day-to-day, operations, like make sure you're scheduling your tweets for your program area. This is what our verbiage, proper branding, as Natalie touched on, what that looks like for the university and what that needs to look like for campus recreation and wellness, any of our login information, descriptions about different areas, contact information for anybody else within the department, tips for what their TikToks could look like, a lot of the information that Natalie touched on as well, but just on a kind of starter level of, hey, maybe you have no idea what this looks like. This is what it has looked like for CRW in the past, and this is how you can innovate and be creative on top of that. My favorite part about all of this, especially since I was able to experience this feeling starting from the bottom, I guess, with CRW, is being able to mentor students and then watching the aha moments of, okay, let's do that, or let's do this, or maybe this didn't work out, but this is something else that we can do better or improve on, or can I do this? It's been awesome to serve as a mentor and provide them the tools, or at least a solid foundation of, this is what I can offer you and this is what I want to teach you, but what are you going to do with this? How can you go above and beyond and think outside of the box with this? So that's something that I never thought I would be able to do. And I definitely wouldn't be able to do it without the help of my supervisors and the mentorship that I've received in the past. So I'm very grateful for that. Something that, like I said, on top of staying planned and organized, something that's worked with us is providing them, like I said, with the foundation, providing them with different activities each week. This semester, we will have 4 new incoming interns and 4 returning interns. So part of the hiring process, we also try to make sure we think about how long can they stay with CRW? Can they get enough experience this semester that they'll want to come back the next semester? And that's something that's really important too, because I know for a fact I'll be graduating this spring, thank God, finally. So I want to at least make it easier for the next graduate assistant that comes in the fall, that there is at least someone that kind of has some sort of experience with me, and that they can take what they've learned and help them get situated and acquainted once that time comes. So something that we do that also helps with content creation is weekly rotations. So what that could look like is there's different assignments, and so this will allow them to get different experiences each week. So for example, one week they'll be expected to collaborate with the graphic designer to create something like a motivational graphic, for example, and they'll get to have that collaboration experience and that communication via Teams or in person, and then they'll be assigned a week to make sure that gets up and posted. Another week, they'll find themselves retrieving information for a blog post, writing that, giving it to me so I can edit that, and then we make sure we post it. Another week, they'll take over Twitter or Instagram, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to post on that platform, but they'll make sure that they are responding to people if we get any DMs. So making sure that we respond to people that reach out to us if they have any questions, liking other content posted by other universities or other users that we follow, making sure that things get posted on our Instagram stories, responding to people on our posts. So making sure we keep that engagement, especially you can't just post and not respond to people, it goes both ways. So, and I can't do that all by myself because I still have to manage them, or at least, try to. I found that it was very overwhelming, not being able to delegate. So delegating and trying to teach them and spread out the responsibilities, that's helped out a lot. Another week, they'll take a time out of their office hours to take quality photos, because while we have a lot of photos of campus recreation wellness, we don't have that many updated photos because we were gone for 5 months. So we need photos of students with their masks, students of what campus looks like now, things that we can put on our website and our social media, because people want to know. Some people haven't been on campus since they left. So that's something that we've been working on, and it's been difficult to get in the groove of things with COVID clusters and not knowing if it's safe, and students being scared and us being scared. So it's really important. I think I've not struggled with, but that's been a challenge to how can I make students feel comfortable in the office? And the only reason I'm not wearing my mask now is because I'm in a room by myself. So really trying to give them that experience in a time where we've all had to adapt, and making sure that their voice is heard and that they feel safe and that there is two-way communication at all times. We also try to street team, and what that's looked like in the past is we set up a table, whether that's at the Student Center or here or at the Health Sciences Student Center, and we promote an event, we gather promotional items. what that's had to look like now, though, because of, social distancing and the gatherings. We just put together goodie bags with promotional items, whether that's phone wallets, koozies, hand sanitizers, putting that in an ECU bag, stapling a flyer maybe to an upcoming event or something that is in the near future, and just leaving that around the student center, or even by like at a table outside the rec center or something like that, and posting about that on social media just so people know that it's out there to grab, and it helps promote, any events that the areas within CRW are, anything that's coming up really. So a lot of these tasks are meant to benefit our social media numbers and engagement, but it also it challenges interns to, how can I be creative this week? This is what I did last week. How can I improve on that? It's not my job to hold their hand the whole time. I'm here to answer any questions, to make sure that they're enjoying this experience, to make sure that I'm not wasting their time as a mentor. I would never ask them to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So if they struggle creatively, I tell them to just text me, come to me, call me whenever you need me. That's part of my job. And I try not to bother them outside of their office hours, so it's been a learning process for sure, but I think keeping open communication between myself and them, as I've mentioned before, especially during these unprecedented times, as we've heard multiple times throughout the last year, I think the key to all of this is just making sure that we're all on the same page, and that's going to look very different for everyone. This is what has worked for us, and I strongly encourage, my students, whoever stays, whoever the next GA is after me, well, this works for me. Like, how can we change this? How can we improve on this? Am I doing a good job as your mentor? What do you need from me? And they'll tell me, and I take that, and then we move forward. So I'm glad that we have figured out a system, and like I said, I have a great supervisor, and she listens to our concerns as well about what's working, what's not working, keeping up with the trends, dropping things that just aren't working anymore that used to work last year. So innovating on everything has been really important. And just sticking to the schedule and reminding them that, they're going to get out of this experience whatever they want to make of it. So I think that's all I have off the top of my head as far as interns and stuff.
Thank you very much. All right. And now we have Morgan with us. Like I said, Morgan's a School of Communication student, and I will say this, that she is missing a campaigns class to be with us today. So thank you so much, Dr. Janae Kong and Morgan, for joining us.
Hello, like Brittany said, my name is Morgan. I'm a current senior here at ECU, studying communications with an African American Studies minor. And while I am continuing my education, I did start the internship with the Global Affairs Office. So I'm the social media intern, managing ECU Abroad and ECU Global's Instagram pages, and then now this semester also their Facebook pages as well. So I can speak a little bit on like the content creation that I do, as well as just my experience as an intern. Similar to what Dania said, a lot of this has just been kind of trial and error, just because this is the first time that Global Affairs has had an intern. So I'm stepping into a new position, but I'm also creating a way for interns after me to kind of learn so that we can kind of grow together. I have two different supervisors who I believe they actually may be on this call right now, Erin Taylor and Kathy Medson, who have been amazing during this process, and they've definitely helped me grow with who I want to be after I graduate, as well as just choosing what's going on within this internship position, which is great. Similar to also what Dania says, we do use our major form of just communication in general is Microsoft Teams. So we use that to schedule meetings. We have bi-weekly meetings to where we just kind of discuss the layout for the semester, as well as any type of events or things I need to be aware of when I do create content for the week. And then in terms of scheduling content and posting it, we use Hootsuite. So I run the Hootsuite accounts for ECU Global Affairs, as well as just the regular ECU Study Abroad. And with that, it's definitely been a lifesaver because I don't have to worry about, oh no, I missed the posting time. I need to get on Instagram. I post this and that. Hootsuite kind of has the ability to just put all the information that I want on there, and it just will post on schedule. And then it also has a feature to where, as an intern, when I do create content, if I need content that needs to be approved before it can get posted, I can save it in the drafts and let my supervisors know, and they can choose to approve, or if I might need to revamp or tweak anything, then I can do that before it's scheduled post date. In terms of content creation, what I rely on the most primarily right now is Canva. I use Canva for just about everything in terms of creating content to post on our actual feed, or if I'm doing like a story cover highlight or just something on stories. Canva is really good with having different templates. And then the biggest takeaway that I would say with using a template is that you can definitely use Canva to create your content, but don't always rely on it. The biggest thing with social media now is you really want to make it your own. You don't want someone to look at it and be like, oh, I know you've used this before because I've seen it. You really want to make sure that you take time to actually customize it and fit it to your audience. And especially being as a ECU organization and just being attached to ECU as well, you want to make sure that you're staying on brand with like the ECU colors, but also tweaking it so that it doesn't look like when a student is just scrolling on Instagram and they see, oh, it's purple and gold, it's ECU, let me like move past it. You want it to also look kind of engaging so that they can gain interest and see what's all about it. So I use Canva a lot with that, and I really enjoy it. It's really easy. Even if you don't have any type of graphic design experience in Canva, you can really look like a pro, and you can wow your colleagues and your students as well. And I love how they also have the option to where you can save your most like frequent fonts or just like different things that you use on a day-to-day basis, so you're not always searching it. It's always going to be there for you, like your color palette or just like different editing tools and things like that. When speaking on just like content development, what my supervisors do is they definitely, kind of similar to what Jania says, we don't have always a big hands-on approach, but they're definitely there when I need them to be. They do provide different content development plans. So if you are looking to just like post for social media, if you're doing any classes or any programs or anything, and you're looking to bring in an intern, having a content development plan is definitely, I wouldn't say it's crucial, but it's definitely helpful when you have interns, because then they're not coming on like a blank slate and having to do research and to figure out what has to be posted. Having a content development plan, it really brings in just the bases, the basic ground, so that you can kind of see, okay, this is where we're standing at, this is what we need to cover. And then I use the content development plan to kind of figure out, okay, what posts do I need to post? What's my audience? What type of events are we doing? Especially as this is virtual, and with a lot of students now, especially the incoming classes, they don't really know a lot about ECU, especially with study abroad, just due to the ongoing pandemic. So my job as an intern is to make sure that I am posting things so that it can kind of get their attention and engagement, and making sure that, okay, even if they do see this post and they might not want to study abroad now, I have to make sure that like they're able to share and bring other people to the table, so that it's not just falling on deaf ears or people who have already studied abroad or graduated, and then it's no longer applicable to them. In terms of strategizing and communication, like I mentioned before, we do bi-weekly meetings. So every other week we'll meet and discuss to see like what's been going on. Is it working? Any new ideas or activities we might need to contribute? And then just being that I am a current student here at ECU, and then I've also had study abroad experience, I'm able to bring in what I've already used previously to the table to see, okay, some people respond more to like post with pictures versus post with text. So it's easier to kind of bring in current and more useful information when discussing like with my supervisors and creating content, just because I kind of see on different ends like what students like versus also what just runs well on social media. So one of the biggest takeaways would be just when doing social media posts, It's good to have information in text-based content, but you don't always want to rely on it, just because if your feed is too text saturated and too text heavy, they'll scroll past it. But at the same time, you want something to be there to grab their attention and maybe draw back to, if you have like a link in your bio, or if your caption is important, kind of encourage them to read. And also, just in my research and just being as a communication major in general, learning about social media, I know that a lot of people respond more when you use like pictures of people. So when you're posting on social media, try to like use maybe current students, or even if you can't find pictures of like ECU students, maybe a few stock photos sprinkled here and there, to just kind of bring some interest back to your feed and like whatever you're speaking of. And Instagram has a lot of ways for you to just be like creative and active, especially if you're using like your story. I know that they have a lot of polls, and with study abroad in general, just because we don't really have any new information just due to the pandemic, we utilize a lot of our story features like for polls, or just ways to where we might like have like a fill in the blank, or like circle like where you want to travel, and then we'll be like repost to your story or tag 3 friends, just because at the end of the day, what your biggest concern is, you want to always increase your engagement levels, but increasing your engagement levels doesn't go anywhere if the followers that you get don't interact with your post. So you always want to make sure that you're bringing back more attention to your page and direct it towards the right audience. So you might say tag 3 people that you want to study abroad with, or we might just basically have lots of more open dialogue conversations, just so that we're always encouraging that two-way communication within our social media platforms. So it's not just like we're posting and then we're just talking to ourselves because we don't have any engagement or anything like that. And I think that's all that I can talk about. Of course, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me, because I am, like I stated earlier, I can speak on the student aspect of this, being a current ECU student, as well as from being an actual intern for social media, specifically from the student perspective versus like a more educational or professional perspective.
Thank you, Morgan. So that wraps up our panel. As you can see, each person kind of has the information that I wanted them on here for, and I hope that you were able to get a lot of different ideas and hopefully be more creative with your social media moving forward through here. But I'm going to open it up now. I think we have about 15 minutes or a little bit more for questions. So please ask questions. They are here to help. Thank you. And also definitely check in our chats because I know that Natalie just shared your presentation. So thank you. Any questions?
I'd like to ask Dania a question. How do you how do you manage your content plans for your interns, especially because you have so many?
Calendars. Lots and lots of calendars. I've really, we have ongoing social media campaigns, and I think I've just been really blessed with a great bunch of interns that they are very much the same way. I would say it's hard to teach the organizational aspect of everything. So that is something that we ask during the interview process. What are your strengths? Are you organized? Do you think this is at least a trait that you can learn? And that's something that I've definitely had to learn myself. And I think I got the most of this when I was interning. That's when I learned, like, hey, if you don't plan this ahead of time, you are just going to kind of fall on your face and it's not going to work out for you. So part of scheduling everything out is, because I've had this experience in their position, I have to take it upon myself of this is what has worked for us in the past. This is where we failed, but this is absolutely the content. These are the things that we need to be doing. I cannot be the one that's posting all the time. I cannot be the one that's engaging all the time. I cannot be answering to DMs all the time or creating TikToks by myself. There's so many different areas within campus recreation and wellness that I have to delegate, and I have to give them that responsibility and hold them accountable for that. So for example, within campus recreation and wellness, I don't think I mentioned this. There's different areas. So we have fitness, wellness, intramural sports, club sports, aquatics, and adventure. So because there are so many different areas that we have to work with, and each area has their own events and programming, I assign one intern or two per area. They have to meet with that area every single week. They have to take those notes, and they all have mentors. So the returning people in some way do mentor the incoming interns. And we have weekly meetings where I make sure to read those meeting minutes, and I make sure to check in with them like, hey, Adventure needs this poster up. They need this up on social media. Are you doing this? What are your plans? What do they look like? So I make sure that the interns have at least some sort of plan if they have a campaign, whether that's for Motivational Monday or for Fit Friday, where we showcase our fitness programs. I work with them on making sure that they have a plan for anything that they come up with, so that they're on the same page. If they need to create due dates, really making sure that they have those due dates, making sure that they have the schedules that I give them. So if they have a TikTok due this week, making sure that they have access to that and giving them that ahead of time. So for example, new interns are expected to start next week. I have been meeting with them this week, training, and we meet with them tomorrow in person. And I'm going to give them a packet with all of the information so they can't say that they didn't have it. It's basically, I've taken it upon myself to create a syllabus of sorts, like here are your due dates, here are your expectations. These are what I'm requiring of you. But if you want to come up with your own campaign or your own video series or anything that you want to create, I will help you plan that. I will help you creatively, but it's up to you to execute that. And I will help you with the editing process, tell you why this works, why this doesn't work. So I would say just communication and planning ahead of time. They can't come up with something yesterday and expect it to post it tomorrow, unless it's just perfect and it works out, but there typically isn't. So that's something that I try to emphasize to them, but I can't make that an expectation if I don't do that, if I don't present that to them as well, and teach them about if it's worked or not before, if that answers your question.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I see on here someone saying that it was mentioned to use a spreadsheet to organize content.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone else has an example. I have like my commencement one, but I don't have like an overall, because we plan our content through Falcon, which is our management platform. So if anyone else has a spreadsheet that they can share with them.
I can share really quick just something. I know I mentioned, if I can share my screen on Teams, what rotations would look like for interns. And this is something that I have to, I'll like create Word documents of things that I know what I need them to look like. And then I will transfer it over to, I created my booklet for them on Adobe InDesign. So I will go ahead and share my screen really quick of what I think. Can everyone see my screen? No. Yes. No.
It's like showing you, I think, or
Okay. I think I just clicked the wrong thing. I never know if it's screen one or can everyone see my screen?
there you go.
Yes. Okay. So this is what I'm showing, what I'll be putting in the booklet for new interns. So this is just what I mean by either a spreadsheet or a table to just start organizations. So like I said, I plan through the entire semester, and they will have this by the end of the week. So this is their collaborations with graphic designers, just so they have that collaboration experience for Motivational Monday and Tuesday tips. And they know ahead of time they will be working with the same designer all throughout the year, just so they have that some sort of consistency with who they're communicating with. For their blog post, we have another blog as well. I don't have that in that schedule in here, I don't think. But for Pirate 411, scheduling them ahead of time, I let them know when it's due, when their draft is due, and then I let them know when they can expect that to be published. And then I just have a different intern. Like I said, I don't expect them to do the same thing every week, but this is just how I'm attempting to keep them all organized so they're all doing something else. TikTok lead rotations, what I've done with this is I assign a lead. So this is the person I'm expecting to turn in a TikTok that week, but then I also make sure that they at least have some help or some ideas, from someone else. And if that person isn't available to help them actually create this TikTok, I told them they can come to me. And like I said, you see these dates here for the weeks. So if Simona is expected to create a TikTok this week, she's not expected to come up with a blog or create something else with someone else that week. The Twitter takeover, same thing. There's weeks in between they have to do that. And if Justin took over Twitter one week, he is then expected to take over Instagram the next week or whenever it's his turn again. Same thing with photography, just planning it out ahead of time, just so they know what they're expected to do, on top of meeting with their liaisons with their areas, because they are the marketing liaison for that area, if that helps anyone. But like I said, we primarily use TikTok. You're welcome. I'm not TikTok. I'm sorry, Hootsuite to draft tweets. And I can what that looks like, but essentially if you go into Hootsuite, you can draft a tweet or expect to publish a tweet, but I just tell them to schedule it, leave it as a draft, and then I can go and approve it, and then it's just scheduled ahead of time. And for Instagram, I have another student that's taking over that platform, but essentially what students do is they submit that photo to her ahead of time of any that will promote an upcoming event or project. She will then take that photo, edit it, but it's their responsibility to come up with captions and to give some sort of context to that photo. And they're expected to at least turn in one Instagram photo submission a week, just so we have content. Even if we don't use it, maybe it's a photo that we can use ahead of time. I would say what helps is gathering more content ahead of time, so then at least maybe on a slower week, you have a photo just of campus to post, or of students interacting with each other in the rec center. So when you don't have anything to purposefully promote, like an event on campus, like Polar Bear Plunge is coming up, and that's going to be really huge, and we'll be pushing that very heavily soon, but that's not the case always. So extra content is good content, I think. So.
All right, I think we have just about 7 minutes. Any other last questions?
I do have one. For those of you that work or collaborate on social media, or if you have the interns, how do you maintain like a consistent tone in your posts or consistent wording, so to speak, when you have so many different people working on it at the same time?
So I will speak from the university side of things. We need more people, but right now it's me. And then my boss helps me when she can. She's a saint. And so what we've done, just when I started the end of November 2018, we sat down and she kind of broke down. She had like a sheet, as Nia said, where it was kind of, these are what we do, this is what we are, like ECU for Dummies 101, essentially, like just so I had like a core grasp of what it was. And I spent probably like a month kind of getting a hold of all of that and working with her very, very closely to understand the brand and what could go out, what should go out, what the phrasing should be, etc. And then I would say in January, the reins were loosened a little bit. And then we had kind of a follow-up meeting where with me coming on and her, just it not being just her working on social media, we were able to kind of curate brand voices for each specific platform. So for like Facebook, we go for more of the like, you know, those P&G commercials when the Olympics come around and it's like, I couldn't have done this without mom picking me up when I scraped my leg. Like that's kind of the feel we go for on Facebook because it is more parents and older alumni. So they kind of like the feel good approach where it's, you know, it's heartwarming or it's something that it's news that's going to make you happy. It's not, we don't like putting out like sad news type of stuff, even though with coronavirus, it's been a lot of sad news. And then with Twitter, it's much more laid back, jocular. That's our platform where we're able to show more personality. So we get a little more edgy on that platform, I would say. When I interviewed, I did say that I wanted to be the Wendy's of higher education because I feel like Wendy's just trolls everyone. And I think that's really funny. So I do have an entire folder of stuff I wasn't allowed to post, but makes me laugh to this day. And my bosses get a kick out of it as well. But we just try to be a little more fun, be a little more like lighthearted with people. It's where we build our relationships the most because you can have more of a free-flowing conversation. Instagram is obviously very student-centric, so we lean a lot on what we're hearing on social media. I do a lot of research and just kind of figure out what social media influencers are doing, specifically like the most popular ones, just to kind of see why people are tuning into them and putting out content that way. And that one, again, is much more like visually branding. So we use a lot of like dad puns. Those go over really well. And then on the other platforms like Gen Z on TikTok, we get a lot of input and feedback from Gen Z specifically for those. And LinkedIn is where we target alum, obviously, but we call them like big dollar donors. That's kind of how we think of the phrasing when we're putting it into a post. This is where we've got to be the most professional. Like this is where we are bragging as much as we can brag without being obnoxious about what EC is doing. So we had kind of the core foundation, and then on top of that, as time went on, we curated specific voices. And so I would say, hopefully, if and when we can ever hire someone, we would sit down with them and kind of start with the bare bones of it, have like those cheat sheets of like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then allow them the freedom and ability as time progresses to come to us with ideas, kind of how me and her sat down and figured out specific brand voices for each of the platforms. And then approval processes. So I never post anything without my boss seeing it. And my boss always sends her stuff through to approval for me on our social media management platform. It's awesome because I can choose her as the approver. She can choose me. We get emails and push notifications to our phone saying that there's a piece of content ready for approval. And if it's not approved in time, it fails to post. But that way it's just triple checking eyes. If it's something like big, so say I'm posting something for Chancellor Mitchelson and it's not something that's more laid back, but it's something much more personal, professional, those types of things. It goes to my boss, Kristen, and then she's like, okay, that looks good. And then I send it to Janine and Jamie as well to get a second eyes on it. And then sometimes it even goes through another layer where it will go to Chris Locklear and Dr. Mitchelson. So it depends how high the approval layers go based on the content we have, but the most minute content always sees two eyes, just to prevent, because sometimes when you're reading something, you won't see a glaring error. I like to use this example. I said how-to guide one time when I posted about a how-to guide for a campus move-in. And that saw multiple eyes, and there was still a how-to guide posted on our Twitter. You can go find it. It already had likes and retweets, so I was like, you know what? I ain't picking this battle today. But just it helps prevent how-to guides from happening. At least it was a how-to guide. Could have been worse. So multiple eyes.
Thank you. That helped a lot.
That's great. I think, Natalie, that you should put that the Hot to guide out there. We should disseminate that as a always check multiple eyes.
Should I just need a screenshot. One time I almost posted Verton success for veterans, and my boss was like, "Did you? I think it's supposed to be veterans." And I was like, "You know what? Yes, you're correct. I would have offended many a veteran. My grandfather would have come and popped me upside the head." So.
But I think that's just about the end. If anybody has any more questions, please let me know. I can send.
I use Falcon.
Yeah, that's what.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll say I use Hootsuite because it's free, but I don't have the platforms that a lot of the other places do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if there's no more questions, I think this is the end of our session. If you have any questions, by all means, please email me, Brittany Thompson. I think I'm Thompson, BRI14 at ecu.edu, and I can at least find answers for you, or try to. I would like to thank everybody for coming, and especially our panelists for coming and sharing your tips and suggestions and experiences with us. I cannot thank you enough for doing this today, especially in the first week of classes. But I think if that's it, we are done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for organizing this. Brittany did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a great rest of the first week, okay?
You too.
Try.
Yeah, good luck.